and the video went viral.
Isaac Satlat did not know that his small car was about to become a crime scene, or that a tiny camera on his dashboard would record his very last moments on this earth. On the morning of February 11, 2026, in the area of Atteridgeville, Pretoria, people walking by found a car that looked like it had been dumped. Inside was the body of a 22-year-old man who had moved from Nigeria to South Africa to study and build a better life for his family. The highlight of this story is not just the tragedy, but the fact that the killers were caught on high-definition video while they committed the act. Because Isaac had installed a dashcam to protect himself while working as a Bolt driver, every second of the struggle was saved on a memory card. This footage showed the world exactly how two people he thought were normal passengers turned into monsters. When the police arrived, they didn't have to guess what happened because the evidence was right there, staring back at them from the glass of the windshield. This story became a global sensation because it showed the dangers that many young African students face while trying to earn an honest living in big cities. Isaac Satlat was a student of mobile engineering, a very smart young man who loved music, modeling, and his church community back home. He moved to South Africa because he wanted to get a great education and eventually help his mother and two siblings who were still in Nigeria. To pay for his school books and his rent, he started driving for a ride-sharing app called Bolt, which is very popular in South Africa. Driving people around can be dangerous, especially at night or in quiet areas, so Isaac was always careful to follow the rules and stay polite to everyone who entered his vehicle. On that Wednesday morning, he received a notification on his phone for a new trip and he drove to the pickup location thinking it was just another way to make a few dollars for his studies. He had no way of knowing that the two people waiting for him were not looking for a ride, but were planning to take his car and his life. The story of Isaac is a reminder of how quickly a normal day can turn into a nightmare for someone who is just trying to do the right thing and work hard. The dashcam footage starts with Isaac driving normally through the streets of Pretoria with two passengers in the car. A woman was sitting in the front seat next to him and a man was sitting directly behind him in the back seat. For the first part of the trip, everything seemed completely fine and there was no sign that anything was wrong. Suddenly, without saying a word, the woman in the front seat began to hit Isaac and grab his arms while he was still trying to steer the car. Because Isaac was wearing his seatbelt, he was pinned against his seat and could not move freely to defend himself from the punches. He tried his best to keep the car on the road so they wouldn't crash and hurt anyone else, but the attack was very fast and very violent. While he was fighting off the woman, the man in the back seat reached forward and put his hands around Isaac's neck to stop him from breathing. This was a coordinated attack by two people against one young man who was trapped in a small space with nowhere to run or hide from his attackers. As the struggle continued, the footage showed Isaac fighting with every bit of strength he had left to push the man's hands away from his throat. He was gasping for air and trying to unbuckle his seatbelt, but the woman kept holding him down and hitting him so he couldn't get free. The car eventually slowed down as Isaac lost consciousness because he could no longer breathe while the man in the back seat kept squeezing his neck. It is a very difficult video to watch because you can see the exact moment when Isaac's body goes limp and he stops moving entirely. The two attackers did not show any mercy or stop even when they saw that he was no longer fighting back against them. Once they were sure he was dead, they didn't run away immediately. Instead, they moved his body to the back of the car and left it there with Isaac's body still inside, thinking they could just walk away and never be caught for what they did. When the news of the murder broke, many people on social media began to say that Isaac was killed because he was a foreigner from Nigeria. This is called xenophobia, which is when people are mean or violent to others just because they come from a different country. In South Africa, there have been problems like this before, so many people were angry and thought this was another example of a hate crime against a Nigerian student. However, the police and Isaac's own family had a different view of what happened on that dark Wednesday morning. They believed that the killers were just criminals who wanted to steal the car, which is called hijacking, and that things went wrong during the robbery. Isaac's father was very clear that he did not want his son's death to cause more fighting between Nigerians and South Africans. He wanted people to focus on the fact that his son was a good person who was killed by bad people, regardless of where they were born or what language they spoke.
The investigation into the death of Isaac Satlat moved very quickly because the police had the best witness possible, the video from the car. Within just 2 days of finding Isaac's body, the South African Police Service tracked down the woman who was seen in the front seat of the car. Her name was Elder Tsfella, and she was only 25 years old when she was arrested on February 13, 2026. Shortly after she was caught, the police found 2 other men named Machidi and McLaren, who were also involved in the crime. These 3 people were brought before a judge at the Pretoria Magistrates Court to face charges of murder and robbery. It was a very emotional day for everyone who knew Isaac, especially his father, who had to go to the funeral home to identify his son's body. The shock of seeing his son like that caused the father's blood pressure to go up so high that he almost died himself and had to be rushed to the hospital. He refused to watch the video of the attack because he said the pain of losing his son was already too much to handle without seeing the violence. Before we continue with the final moments of the court case and the lessons we can learn from this tragedy, please take a second to subscribe to Tremendous Crime in History. We tell these stories because the victims deserve to be remembered, and we want to help you understand the real-world dangers that exist so you can stay safe. By subscribing, you support the memory of people like Isaac Satlat and help us bring more detailed, honest true crime stories to light every single week. We don't just talk about the crimes, we talk about the families and the justice system so you get the full picture of every event. Now, looking back at the story, Isaac's family is still trying to raise enough money to send his body back to Nigeria so he can be buried in his hometown. This is a very expensive and difficult process, but they want him to rest in the land where he was born, surrounded by the people who loved him most. It is a very sad ending for a young man who left his home with big dreams of becoming an engineer and making his mother proud. If you believe that drivers for apps like Bolt and Uber should have better protection and safety features in their cars, write "safety first" in the comments right now. We want to know your thoughts on how these companies can stop this from happening again. The 3 suspects made a very strange choice when they appeared in front of the judge for the first time in February 2026. Usually, people who are arrested for a crime try to ask the judge to let them go home while they wait for their trial, which is called applying for bail. But Elder Tsfella, Machidi, and McLaren all decided to give up their right to ask for bail, which means they stayed in jail while the police finished their investigation. This was a big relief for the community because it meant these dangerous people were off the streets and couldn't hurt anyone else while the lawyers prepared for the trial. The police also announced that they were looking for a 4th person who might have helped plan the attack or helped the killers hide after the murder. The case against them was very strong because the dashcam video showed their faces and their actions so clearly that it was hard for them to deny what they had done. In South Africa, if you are found guilty of a planned murder like this, you can be sent to prison for the rest of your life without any chance of getting out early. The take-home lesson from the story of Isaac Satlat is about the value of hard work and the reality of modern crime. Isaac was doing everything right. He was studying a difficult subject, he was working a job to pay his own way, and he was staying connected to his church and his family. His death shows us that even when you are a good person, bad things can happen if you are in a vulnerable position, like driving strangers in a car. It also teaches us about the power of technology in the fight for justice, because without that camera, the killers might have gotten away with their crime. We must remember Isaac not as a victim of a Nigeria versus South Africa war, but as a brave young man who fought for his life until the very end. His story encourages all of us to be more aware of our surroundings and to support the people in our communities who are working hard in dangerous jobs. We should also learn to listen to the families of victims like Isaac's father, who chose peace and truth over anger and revenge even during his darkest hour of grief. As we finish this story on tremendous crime in history, we ask you to think about how lucky we are to have people like Isaac in our world, people who move to new places to learn and grow. His death was a great loss to the world of engineering and to his family in Nigeria who are waiting for him to come home after his studies. The legal system is still working to make sure the people responsible pay for what they did, and we will continue to watch the news for the final sentencing. It is important that we don't let these stories just disappear. We must share them so that the people in charge of safety for ride-sharing apps feel the pressure to make changes. Every time you share a video like this, you are helping to keep the memory of a good man alive and helping to prevent the next tragedy from happening to someone else. Thank you for spending your time with us today to honor the life of a young student who deserved a much longer and happier life than the one that was taken from him. Please remember to subscribe to Tremendous Crime in History for more stories like this. Your support helps us tell the truth about what happens in our world. Stay safe out there.